This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. We're now in season 6. Thanks to all of you tuning in and sharing the podcast with your friends to keep the momentum going. This podcast is dedicated to all things horse and all things that uplift equine well-being and welfare. And I'm having down-to-earth conversations with equine professionals about the little things that move the dial slowly but surely towards a better world for horses. You'll find all the episodes, 93 and counting now, on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for being here and enjoy the ride. Hi everyone, and welcome back. You're here for the Whole Horse Podcast, and I'm Alexa. And today on the podcast, I have been excited to chat with this guest for a long while. I've been watching her work from afar and just finding myself more and more curious. And then I saw her working with a good friend of mine and doing work involving nervous system. And I was like, okay, we got to chat. So really excited to welcome you today, Rachaël, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Alexa. It is absolutely likewise. Every time I go to the States, people say, have you talked to Alexa yet? And I go like, oh, yes, the moment it's there. So I'm really looking forward to our chat. So thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Also in my 6-month program, one of the main things that's come through is like, I want to learn about, because I always ask at the beginning, what is something you're curious about? What is something that you want to learn more about? And for so many people this year, and I think it's just sort of that, this edge that we're exploring, it's around calming signals, scent work, enrichment. A lot of people are, sort of at this place with their horses going, okay, how do I take these next steps into this space with my horses? So I feel like this conversation is really well timed as well in that way.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. I think I should agree because with calming signals, my mentor Ture Ugas obviously paved the way in a way with the dogs, having written books about calming signals of dogs and teaching for many years. And with the scent work, the way I try to implement it in our lives with horses, it was rather new. Not the equine search and rescue, especially in the States, that was well known. And I think Terry Nowaczki founded that. But the way I implement it with horses who have behavioral challenges, or people want to add this to our lives with horses. And I sometimes wondered, like, if I would have started the book, if it was published 10 years ago, would it then be sold or not? So I think you're so right with timing that people are looking around them, and welfare is getting more and more attention. And also the question of people like, is there more we can do to enhance the relationship or the life of our horses? Yeah.
Oh, yes. It gives me goosebumps over here because I really think that it's such an important conversation, and there's these wonderful trajectories that we can head down and start to learn about. So in terms of your work in these particular branches of equine welfare, enrichment, and more, how did you come to this awareness? So what was your sort of path to this particular awareness about horses?
Well, I think obviously with everyone, it is a journey. And last week, it is a bit of a side topic, but what triggers me very often is think about how do we come to change our behavior? What is the moment that someone says, okay, from this point on, I will be vegetarian. From this point on, I'm not going to hit my horse anymore. From this point on, I want this or that. What leads up? Is it an emotion? Is it pain? Is it like the social structure that you feel brave enough to say it? There's so many variables in that. So also for me, it was like a journey and it started with a feeling, wanting to bond with horses and seeing that the methods of treatment were sometimes so harsh, and seeing that they weren't shut down, and it felt wrong, but as a child, you went along. So it is a journey that I think everyone will recognize. And when I started to work full-time as a behavioral consultant, first as dogs, there was this moment where I saw so many fearful animals, aggressive animals, because at the time I worked with a group of veterinarians in my area, and It came to that they called me every time they had to euthanize a dog because of aggression problems. And I went to those dogs and I thought, like, it really hit me that they could not cope in our human lives with stimuli around them. And that set me off to a journey to think about, like, okay, what is the comfort zone of that horse or that dog? Firstly, it was the dog. And why is that dog recovering quicker? How can we make them more resilient? And I mean, when I started, and that was 2002, dominance theory was still very valid. So you have to be a leader. Also, positive reinforcement was growing. So, and now I'm making it I'm simplifying and generalizing. I don't want to offend anyone, but for the sake of the easiness of the story. So they said, if you have a really good stake, you can win everyone. And I thought, it's not going to do it for me. I can be a leader, I can have that stake, but still I felt like it is like this layer or this trick I put upon the animal. And what I was looking for was, how can I make that animal more courageous by itself, that he doesn't need us to solve it for him? How can I make him that he's starting to get curious and that he wants to live that life and is able to? So that was the journey that I thought, like, I'm missing something. And that journey led me to Gugas's work, because I also thought of, I really have to be more stout to fine-tune the body language of the dog, because I mean, everyone sees when a dog or a horse is extremely stressed or very relaxed, but I wanted to really be able to pinpoint when he's going towards the edge of the comfort zone, touches it, going over, so the smaller steps, so that if I would offer him mental stimulation, or if I could see, like, what are his boundaries of comfortable, can I build something that is exciting for him, but what he can handle. And what he can handle, really, you have to fine-tune what you see. Is it still excitement? Is it still curiosity? Or is there a little bit of fear in between? So that set me up. And so in a way, it is entwined, like looking at the body language and developing the scent work. And I said to it, Rugas was important for my work and still is, as is Anneliel Kwam with her scent work activities. And I build on their blocks and I transferred it to horses, because, and I know many of these horse lovers will recognize this, being around stables as a 6-year-old and mucking stalls for a lesson and cutting all the horse magazines and putting all the stables on the walls. My children are not into horses, and I thought, like, you really are, or you're not. There's not much in between, is there?
You're either obsessed or you're not.
No, exactly. So I mean, and I had a horse from the age of 14, so I was at the horse barns every day and I'm comparing dogs and horses. So for me, it was a very, very natural transition to go from full-time dogs to full-time horses, because in a way, horses, as dogs, live in lives where there can be so many strong demands, and their welfare and our welfare really depends on them being able to handle life, our human life, with all the demands in it. Yeah. So that was a very long story to say that was the journey to start looking for a method to empower them and to make them curious and more courageous. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, I know that you and Sarah Schlote of Equisoma had a workshop together.
Yeah.
And of course,
wonderful.
Yeah, she's been on the podcast. She's a dear friend of mine, and I just love her work so much, as far as nervous systems and how nervous systems function, polyvagal theory, all these pieces. I mean, I'm simplifying majorly. But for you, what I'm hearing is you were looking for ways to actually support the nervous system.
Absolutely, yeah.
In a lot of ways, like just that sense of, okay, what does it look like to, not just do training processes, but actually provide resources that allow this animal to live a life that's more rich and full, and where they are more resilient and resourced in this, frankly, domesticated space where
absolutely
they kind of need to be. They're exposed to all the humanness, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also giving them tools that the nervous system can wind down by themselves. So they have practice in that. But obviously also with Sarah's work, because it intertwines very, very natural, our work. When doing that, I'm a very practical person. So I would not know all the fancy names back then. But she obviously does, being a professional in that field. But it does all that. Absolutely. Yeah. But when developing this, I thought of, I really want them to recover more quickly from a shock. I see that the shocks are not that high and that the recovery time is quicker. So those would be my terminology. And I want them to have a tool to calm themselves down, that they can do a little bit of scent work. So that's, that would have been my terminology. Yeah. But it does the same. Absolutely. You're pinpointing the underlying biological
Oh, wonderful.
processes.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I find fascinating about the nervous system work is the studies into play.
Yeah.
And what starts to change in the system regarding play. So how have you seen that, pardon the pun, play out in your work with horses?
well, I'm still right in the process. What puzzles is, I don't know if that's the good word in English, but what fascinates me is that I sometimes have study cases and practical cases with horses, and they adapt so quickly that, so for instance, I met Dagmar and her Icelandic horse Brodier in January, and I have some footage on him on my online course. And what we saw with Brodier, that he went into shutdown fairly quick if there was some pressure on the lead rope or if there was something he didn't want to do with lunging. And that shutdown could have taken like 40 minutes if he would not have help. So quite a long time. So what we did in January, I was invited by Blueberry Hill, Susan Kiergaard. We had a lecture in the morning on Saturday and Sunday, and the Saturday afternoon and the Sunday afternoon, I had 2 sessions with Dagmar and Brodier. So 4 sessions of 20 minutes in total. And we did scent work exercises and tried to make him curious. We detected what would be hard for him. And when we had that new plan in working, I had contact with Dagmar. He never did it again. And he had a regular shutdown for several times a week for 6 years. And we have always been taught that if you work with emotions, it takes a very long time to recover. But now I sometimes wonder, because if you do exploration and if you do scent work, you're doing something with the brain. And I'm not sure if it's right, but I have this assumption that because you're giving the brain tools or giving new pathways in the brain, that it doesn't take that long, because you don't have to erase the other. You're giving the horse new tools that they can use right away. So it might be that this can be a quicker method, and maybe not for all horses. I mean, I don't want to simplify it, but I am sometimes in awe how quickly results can happen.
I love that. And, being a geek and an osteo, I go to, cranial work, the olfactory nerve, and this direct connection into our emotional brain. This scent work being like, and I haven't studied a lot of scent work at this time, but I find myself very fascinating in this moment, is just how much does that connection through that specific form of sensory information sort of bypass a lot of the stuff, right? That they, and really support a shift that's, like you say, quite amazingly fast, potentially.
Absolutely. And if we talk about play, what you asked me, and absolutely, again, not for all horses, not for all horse aggression. So please see this in the context of our conversation. A few horses who had a lot of stress when moving, they had some aggression problems. I did scent work with the horses, and the aggression reduced or went away. Obviously, also because tension went away, overall tension. I mean, that is a part. It might be that some pain factors went away, but also, if I think about, but then again, as osteopath, you would know this better than I do, because I work from practicality, and then I read about it, and I thought, oh, maybe that is the case. But if I think that cortisol goes down and you do scent work and exploration goes up, and I wonder, if cortisol goes down and dopamine up, what does it do to the oxytocin? Because we know there is this leverage, right? So what if scent work, I do scent work together with the horse, do for the oxytocin level? What if it goes up and aggression goes down? And in a way, for people, that is sometimes a bit hard to believe, because when I go to a horse and I suggest something nice and playful as scent work, they go like, oh God, they are disappointed already with the horse. And then you're going to do something fun. So you really have to have a good story to sell that. Totally. Because many people are brought up with first work and then play. Mm-hmm. And then here I am suggesting to do the fun things first. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a shift in thinking. Yeah.
And I think such a critical one, because in order for a horse to learn and adapt, we need a particular nervous system state. This is something that I've seen so much. My mares are kind of so interesting. So I have 2 mares, and Diva was the unfortunate recipient of a lot of, shall I say, harsh training while I was sort of learning. Yeah. We've been together 20 years coming up next month. So she's sort of gone through the whole process with me through natural horsemanship and all these different things. And what I notice about her is that compared to Raven, who is my 9-year-old Canadian mare, who is very curious. So Raven will go up to anything that she's uncomfortable with and smell it. Yeah. Check it out. She wants to, put her head in the side of the truck like check out the tractor. We go past the golf course and she's like putting her head in the golf cart and seeing the golf clubs and right, like and Diva is on the other side of the trail going, oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me.
He's doing it again.
Right. And so I've been witness to this really broad spectrum with the 2 of them of how they process new things and new stimulus, and how they take in information as well. And it's been really fascinating. So for you, when you're looking at, say, a horse more like Diva, who has this immediate aversion to new stimulus, the tension levels go way up. What are some of the first steps that you would work with a horse, along those lines?
Well, I think in general, what people should know with a horse like Diva, or should know, that is a bit, and I really do not like to generalize because every horse is an individual. Totally. But what I do see with some of the clients I have, and obviously some of my clients are horses that spook a lot when they go out riding, and that's dangerous. So what I would see then is a horse that has an active flight system, right? With every stimulus that is coming. So maybe that is also a bit Diva, that whenever there's a new stimulus, she goes in various different stages of fear system being active and a bit of going away. Know that those horses in the beginning do discriminate a bit when you start scent work or introducing stimuli, and that they see every minor difference. So for instance, with your Riva, if one garbage can has a different color, and well, Diva would say, I see this small, tiny detail that is different, and now it's totally not okay. Know that the beginning with those horses can be a little bit more, well, not challenging, but know that they see those details. So you have to have small steps. And for me, that's also a very good learning process professionally, because I'm very enthusiastic when I'm working with horses. So sometimes by nature, I go too fast. I really have to haul myself in to not make too big steps with these horses. But what I would do with her is then, and with you, I would ask, like, what would you like to do the best? Because then I enhance the rate that you would continue doing it.
Right, the motivation, yes.
Yeah, and I would try out a few things to see what she likes best, and then you can think of, okay, I'd like to do this, and you can see like what you would like. And so for instance, with her, I would maybe start up treat search just to scatter food to see if, and to prepare the brain and the body for a little bit of exploration, because sometimes I find with horses that have spooky reactions, their exploration urge is not up that much. So doing it with very low profile game, like if you would scatter apple or a bit of carrot or the feed pellets, or if your horse cannot have sugar, you do some celery, this English word, the celery, or the non-sugar items. Then I would like to see, like, can she do it for a few minutes? Would she be engaged enough and concentrated enough to get that hormonal system going of exploration? Because I do find with some of these horses, but also the horses who have many times in shutdown, that the beginning might take a bit longer because the whole system, the exploration system, has to get going. So I would love to see her, like, would she smell the apples? Would she like to go to the carrots? Would she want to have an overripe banana? Or what would stimulate her to keep searching? And if she could do that for a few minutes, I think I would like to introduce items. So that could be for horses that are extremely spooky. And this is really, really, really low level, is I would maybe have 8 or 9 feeding buckets that they normally would know, and then put some food in one and nothing in the other, just to spark the curiosity up, like, ooh, would that be an apple? Oh, nothing. Just to get the system going of curiosity. Then I might put some paper carton on it, flat, because some of the horses that spook more often find it easier to grab something from a hard surface than a soft towel surface. Then I would maybe introduce a few towels underneath the buckets, and then I would put the buckets next to it, so you only have the towels and the carton boxes. And then I would gradually introduce other items. But the higher the items, very often the more difficult it is. So I would start with very flat objects, not white or blue or yellow, but that in color are a bit grayish for them. And every time on the go, I would see, like, what are they most curious about, and can we expand that? And that, in a way, is the hardest thing, because I think the theory behind it is fairly easy, because you want to get exploration up, fear system down, but the looking at the horses and then adapt on the spot, that is what makes it more successful. Because if I would make enriched environments, and I'm very overly eagerly, and I would stimulate the fear system all the time, even in a weak form, I would train my horse to be more fearful all the time. And his threshold to react will be lower and lower, and you will, have the opposite effect. So you really have to watch and see, and obviously sometimes it may be too difficult, but then you adapt right away. So it is that game that occupies yourself and your horse. Yeah. Yeah.
I love
but you're
that.
more or less a director, because you're staging something and you put them in, and it's off leash and they can do it themselves, and then you adapt. So it's a little bit of a different role in this method. Obviously not if you're scent tracking, because you're doing it together, but if you would build the enriched environments or the scent garden where you work with different smells, or fries smell or ketchup smell or pickle smell or whatever smells you can find to socialize the horse to it, that obviously is more or less the horse by himself or a group of horses. And the scent tracking or some of these scent work exercises you can do on a lead rope, and you can be more or less a team doing it. So there are also differences in that.
First of all, I'm feeling very inspired and excited to go and try
this. What would you like to do with your diva then? What would appeal?
Well, it's an interesting thing, because we live right next to a road. And the only way to get to any kind of trail is through so much stimulus. I mean, so much stimulus. And so a lot of the times there's one route that we can go on where she can stay under threshold, but if we go the other route, she can't. It's too much, cars, trucks, like humanness, so to speak. Whereas Raven, you really see that, she's the one that, I mean, she'll literally go over and just pull out all the portable electric posts. Even with the fence hot, I think she just likes the tingle on her nose. And she just spends her whole time in the paddock just redecorating, and I'll come out and it's like, oh put all the fence posts back up. And she's obviously explored her environment in this really like intricate way. And
how do they interact?
It's so interesting to me, because when I watch, Raven's brave, right? So Raven will go around our track, and if she's going, Diva will be like, okay, I'll follow you down. I'll follow you down, because you've done it. You've gone into, and she'll go. But I have this question around the bucket work, because Diva will kind of prefer, which makes total sense, and I understand as an anxious person as well. She's like, I want to just stay at my hay net. This is my safe zone. She's got this bubble where she's like,
Yeah.
here is good.
Yeah.
My water is good, and I'm just going to stay here. And it's very actually difficult to get her to leave that space.
Yeah.
Without, putting a lead rope on and asking,
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
asking her to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm.
And I think what I don't know if you already do it, but I sometimes feel that it can be a help for people to color their environment in a way that, so for instance, if I go to a client who has a horse with separation anxiety, I would firstly make a picture with the help of Google Maps of the venue, and then we might walk around with the horse and then see like, okay, green would be comfort zone, yellow you would see not one or two calming signals, but multiple. You might see a little bit of clenched lips. You might see eyes or ears, eyes or nostrils getting more open, staying open. Then I would say orange is displacement activities are added, and red is also stress signals and features. So like, okay, your zones. And then I would try to see like, can I start exploration in the green zone? And when she's really getting the hang of it in the green zone, you shove it to the border of the green and yellow zone. So, and then you can expand the boundaries of the green zone, that it's not only exploration in one zone, but it's not bound to a location, but the location is getting spread and wider and wider. And that also helps you a bit having that map. You can also track her progress in a way, because you see those lines shifting. Yeah. So then I would start in a green zone, very close to the hay net then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And of course, when she's on lead with me, things change, right?
Yeah.
And she's more comfortable exploring and doing things. But then I guess not surprising, and maybe you can bring awareness to this, is when I'm on, like, so when I'm riding, her comfort levels as far as her space seem to decrease again. So if I'm walking by her side, she stays more calm and settled.
Oh, but that is so wonderful, though. I mean, how many people would wish that? Because you still have otherwise you also have to work a bit on the bonding of the relationship. And so many horses experience so many frightening things before they get to an owner, that sometimes you have the residue of a horse that doesn't trust the owner anymore, still has to bond. So what a gain that she has that. But you can start together though also with the enriched environment. You can weave yourself in, or the treat surge, and you can also see if you can start to look for apple pieces and point them out, and then weave yourself away. So if it would give Diva more confidence in the beginning, you can, have the three of you do it together, and then, fade the others, or fade yourself, or raven away. Yeah.
Totally.
She will then be happy because she has everything by herself.
I love that. And they're so funny because they do bicker, they're kind of like sisters. That was my treat, I love that. So you shared a little bit about calming signals in that last little piece. And I would love for, I'm sure a lot of people listening have listened to other podcasts or read your book, or, had experience with you in this area. And there may be some listening that haven't. So can you share just a little bit about calming signals and what you're tracking when you're doing, say, scent work exercises or work with a horse?
And then the link with the calming signals, or you mean like two separate topics?
Yeah. So when you're working with calming signals, what are calming signals, and what are you noticing as far as feedback from the horses?
Well, I think maybe it's good to know for listeners is that I, together with my mentor too, started a study in 2013, and what I did was analyzing hundreds of films, and I stopped every film every few seconds, and I noted down like, what is the shape of the mouth, the eyes, the nostrils, what does the horse do in relationship to stimuli, what does the tail do? So I mean, it gave list and list and list of features and behaviors of the horse, and it enabled us to make communication ladders where you can see like, how does a horse behave on every step of the ladder. So it gives a little bit of a feeling of, okay, now he's in between showing calming signals and displacement activity, or now he's going to another step. So it gives a feeling where you are in terms of tension level. For me, calming signals, and the word has been chosen by Ture Rugas when she did the study with dogs. And for her, and for me, it implies those signals that indicate that you want to keep a social positive climate and no negative escalation. So that might be, if we look at a human example, because it could be easier for people to relate to, is that you walk into a city, you want to go to a special store, you're passing someone and you may nod or you may look away. It enables you to not get a conflict and keep continuing to go to the store. Or when you're in line at a supermarket, you have to pay and someone is really close up to you, that you can see yourself shifting to the outside and looking away. You don't want to fight, you don't want to run away, you still need to pay. But the calming signal enables you to stay in that situation and not getting a conflict. Now, obviously, and that is something to keep in mind, a calming signal calms the other and calms oneself by doing it. You want to appease. But it might be that you're in a situation in that city and you don't know the city, it's very crowded and you feel anxious there, that you're still giving a calming signal and want to appease the other that is passing you, but it might be that the underlying tension is very high. That you also have a clenched jaw, that your nostrils are open, your eyes are open, and your breathing is getting shallow. So do know that calming signals can be seen on every step of the ladder, apart when you're in extreme flight mode and running for your life or shut down or showing stereotypical behavior, then you'll see it on the edges. So know that calming signals can be on every step, but you also have to look at the other features and behaviors of the horse to really indicate where is he on the step. Because even when you're really tense, you still want to communicate to the other that you don't want to have a conflict. And that is sometimes a bit hard for people, because they say like, oh, I see a calming signal, I have to stop everything I do. No, maybe not. It depends on how many calming signals and what are the features and behaviors of that horse. If that horse is completely fine and you're approaching him and he does a head turn or a neck turn, that might be similar to our nodding or a smile or saying hello, and we can also duplicate it and we're fine. No need to stop it. I mean, if you're walking your dog and you see another dog approaching you, and you see the one dog starting sniffing and the other one doing a head turn and the other one lowering the head, then you know, okay, they're showing appeasement signals to each other, they show calming signals, I can proceed. What is the difference though if you see calming signals like very fast simultaneously or sequentially, and you see there's a shutdown underneath or the tension is rising and the horse cannot be covered, then you really have to help him. But that's why you need to see the steps and be really, you have fine-tune your observation level. And for me with the tracking, I could not do without, actually. And in a way that is maybe also a weak point, because some people mail me and they say, okay, I have an aggressive horse and I live in Canada, what are your advices? And I cannot advise, because I really have to look at the horse on the spot and see what I see and then make a plan, because it gives so much information of what he can handle. Where can I reach him that he can have a learning opportunity and still remember it and be fine with it with a positive emotion. But I have to see that on the spot, and then work with it. And so in a way, for me, the calming signals and knowing tension levels of the horses are like my two legs. One is the scent-work activity, one is the observation, and they all come together. And I could not do without the other. Yeah, if that makes sense. Is that an answer to your question?
Because absolutely.
Yeah.
And for those out there that are maybe wondering about specifics, so what are some specific things that you're looking for when you're speaking about calming signals, like literally just with what's happening in that horse's body or face? What are they, what might they notice?
Well, obviously a horse, when he encounters a stimuli, it could be that he's not interested or so comfortable with something that he just lifts his head and starts grazing again, and you don't see that many difference. But in general, obviously the eyes will change a bit, the nostrils will change, because there are new senses being stimulated. So he will, but what you're going to look for is like, how does he encounter that stimuli, and how is the time, what happens next? So I very often look to the mouth. Mouth to me is so indicative for the tension level. So I would look like, and that might be a nice practical thing for people. If the horse is in his comfort zone, and obviously every horse has individual features and face, you might see the bottom lip that hangs a little bit more loose. So you'll see a rim of the bottom lip or a small corner. And when the horse is proceeding to the edge of the comfort zone, you very often see that he starts to not tightly clench, but the lips will get more parallel. And I'll show it to you, and then you see if we can find words, but it's more like...
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not yet clenching. So that is the edge. If I see that with horse, I go, okay, not yet clenching, not yet the lines around the mouth. And if he starts clenching, or if he starts, the upper lip will protrude or get a little bit of a different shape, then you know, okay, I'm getting in the higher tension levels. I really have to, go down a bit in what I'm doing. Yeah. And obviously, eyes are also indicative, but I think people very often only look at the eyes, while the mouth has more different phases of tension you can read off it. And obviously an eye can also go in different stages of being round, but I think if you start noticing the mouth, it's easier to get the variables in that. So the mouth, I would look at the mouth. I would look, do I see displacement behaviors like rubbing the head on objects, or that the horse starts biting himself, or do I see the flight system being active? Do I see a shutdown, which I think is not very often noticed, that the horse gets an inward gaze? And in a situation where you would say, like, there's so many stimuli, you would expect him to watch television and look around him because there's so much to do, but he shuts himself off. Yeah. And I know when I will listen back to this tape, I will go like, oh, I should have said it this and that and be more structured, but I hope you can still make a thread out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one question I had was about the ears. So does ear position come in at all into this work?
Yeah, it does. I mean, but in a way, I sometimes think it's more nuanced that people say, because to me, the ears indicate where the attention goes to. And the higher the tension, the more movement you will see with the ears. But it's not like that people say, oh, the ears are backwards, he's going to kick. Not at all. It might also be that there's a little bit of pain or a tension on the back. So, I mean, ears to me mouth to me is more an indication than the ears. Yeah. If I want to conclude something about that. Yeah. Because sometimes some horses are misunderstood, because I come to them and they say like, well, he's really grumpy and he has his ears back and he wants to charge me because of the backward ears turned backwards. And very often I see a horse in pain and I think, oh, but his attention is to the back. He's not wanting to shoo anyone away. Could be though, because of the pain, but sometimes it's just that the attention is there and then they're a bit misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, because I know that there's more and more coming forward around like the horse grimace scale and ways of like you're speaking about pain brings us to mind of like, the sense of where sort of calming signals and grimace scale or pain indicators start to overlap, I suppose. Because I can imagine that happens often, with horses. As an equine body worker, I know that like I never go out and see a horse that's just all honky-dory happy, healthy, I just don't.
Yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is such, isn't it? I mean, don't you find that is such a challenge? Because sometimes you see horses and you think, you think something, as my friend Julia says, like, sometimes when it hurts your eyes, you know there's something wrong. But when you have the veterinarian there, everything seems right. And still you have this feeling that it's hard sometimes to pinpoint it and to find it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe as osteopath, not as much, since you have such a broad knowledge of the body as a whole. But I can imagine that it's sometimes hard for owners to find what.
it can still be challenging even for
Yeah.
me, right? And I think I wonder if there's many horses that are existing, maybe the vet has ruled out pain. We hear that a lot,
Yeah.
and there's no obvious stuff maybe coming up on scans. And then maybe there's not super obvious stuff coming up in body work. But to me, knowing my own body and being
Yeah.
someone that's experienced chronic pain,
Yeah.
I recognize that there can be other aspects to that.
Yeah.
And that there may be something that horse is experiencing that they are attempting to communicate with us,
Yeah.
despite all of the professionals maybe saying otherwise. Yeah. So what is your sense about that overlap, calming signals, Grimace scale? What have you seen in that way?
I think it's almost too hard to give a generalization, because for me it is so worthwhile to look at that horse and what he does in that moment.
Yep.
Because there's so many options. It might be that you think like a horse is shooing someone away, and then you wonder like what. I mean, to me, what is valuable in my work is try to pinpoint what the sequence is where the horse is reacting to, and what is the stimulus or stimuli he's responding to. And that is to me the question, like, was it a movement? Was it something that he felt in his body? Was it something he heard or smelled? And trying to find that, to me, is the puzzle that helps me a lot. And obviously, pain indicators are so necessary to know, so necessary. And there can be an overlap, but I'm not sure, because you can't see pain and you can't see the calming signals, and you can't see pain and you can't see shooing them away. So in a way, it feels like all those different systems are there, and they are shown either simultaneously or sequentially. But you can recognize a lot in a way if you're capable of knowing your horse and see like, okay, but now he has tension. Oh, but that's a weakened distance increasing signal that he wants to flee or shoo someone away. And then you might see in one step that he, gives a slight long nostril, pulled up nostril. You go like, oh, why is that? Is that distance increasing signal for shooing the pain away, or am I doing something wrong? So I mean, it is that puzzle, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
And I will not say that I can solve it all the time, because it is a difficult puzzle sometimes, and especially I find sometimes it is hard to know, like, is there a pain memory, or is it happening now? Is he responding to other traumatic experiences? So that's a challenge, isn't it?
It is.
We're never done in that puzzle, and maybe that's also the addictive part of being a horse owner, horse lover, and working with horses, that we're never done, and it's always like, okay, I need to learn more. Yeah.
It's so true. It's like, oh, what's the next little frontier?
Yeah, exactly. What do I see, and why this, or
yeah.
And I touched a horse. I was working with a horse, and I did a treat search, and he was really he didn't like to be touched by people. So I did a treat search, and I weaved myself in, and we were doing that for 4 or 5 sessions, and with breaks in between, 2 or 3 hour breaks in between. And at the end, he came to me and he was leaning towards me, and I felt like he wanted to be touched. But obviously, I'm a primate and a horse lover, so I love to touch. So that is. So you think like, do I want to do it, or does he really leans into me? But he was leaning in, so I touched him for a few seconds and then stopped to check if he really wanted me to proceed. And he leaned towards me, touched my hand, and I repeated it. But in a way, it was such a strange moment, because I also saw a pulled up nostril, and I also saw a face, not of delight, but very flat, like shut down face. But still, he did touch my hand to be touched. So those are such intriguing moments. Like, does he have negative feelings? Does he have pain now? Is it like former trauma that he still has to get used to the pleasant feelings of touching? So it is a puzzle again. Oh, I hope I'm not confusing everyone with what I'm saying.
No, I love that, because it really brings back things for me as a body worker, because I love that sense at the beginning. You said something along the lines of, I sometimes go too fast or do too much, and I think it's as a body worker, I find I do this all the time because I get so excited about the puzzle, and
Yeah.
I want, I want to
Yeah.
like
Oh, now we can do this.
do all the things, and this recognition that, the body can only take so much, and we actually need to just give it that right amount that then it can work with and process and integrate, right?
Yeah,
So there's
absolutely.
this beautiful kind of balance point of the session of like, that's it, don't do more.
Exactly. Sit on your hands and turn around. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And I also find doing body work, this horse you just described, there is a sense sometimes where I found, and in my work, where it's almost like us when we're doing as humans in our healing process, like there's moments where things are hard, but it's like there's a recognition somewhere in us of like, this is important to move through, or on the other side of this is more space, pleasure, availability, resource, like comfort, all those things. And I have seen, I think, as a body worker, that this is, something, this is a sort of space that I play with, of when is it right for me to, say, keep my hand somewhere and move through a process with a horse, even though there's things, happening in their system, or they're going, woo, this is a lot. And to see them through to this end point, how much do I stay or not? And maybe you have even things that you can share about your experience with that. I think as a body worker, this is something that's a constant question for me, because as a horse, they can say, to me through their expression, this is too much, but with a person, they're able to actually speak out, like, let's go through this. I need to, it's uncomfortable. Let's do it. That's not necessarily the situation with a horse that I'm working on.
And especially because sometimes you have those conditioned responses, right? That they know they have to stay with the owner, or because sometimes I find, I said, my friend Julia, she teaches physiotherapists to treat dogs. And I don't know if I do justice by it, but it's the Galen Meyer therapy. And I've seen many sessions where they have the dog loose in a space, they treat it, and then it can go away, but it comes back, even though it was just the process you describe. And I sometimes feel with horses that is not that well developed.
Yes, it's true.
Because they are so conditioned, or when they go away, they stay away. So, so in a way, it isn't shown as much. And I think I have two things I want to say though with the body work. What I found in my film sessions that might be helpful is that I very often see body workers treat the horse, and then the owner talks to the body worker, because that is they're eager, they want to know, what do you feel, what's wrong, and both parties stay frontally facing the horse, because the owner positions themselves to also touch the horse. And I do find that when they are talking, position themselves either with the flanks towards the horse or in front of the horse, not frontally facing them, that it gives a little bit of a timeout for the horse, and he can cope better with the next few minutes or sessions. So that was something that hit me when analyzing the films clips of body workers working with horses, and I thought, oh wow, that is interesting, because in a way, otherwise the pressure of us frontally facing and them not knowing when we start again might trigger something of being still active. And so that was something that came up with your story as well. But also what came up with me is those conditioned responses, because also with scent tracking, in a way I say I teach a horse scent tracking or scent work, but in a way I don't teach them. They already know, they have it innate them to browse and to search, but they forgot how to do it in our mutual lives. So in a way, I give them the opportunity to rediscover it again with them. And sometimes I have horses who stand next to the owner and really, the nostrils don't even flare. It's totally not in their system. So if we talk about, you say like the horse doesn't move away or doesn't show as much, I can so relate to that from the conditioning part. Yeah.
It's so true. And even we have a 2-year-old at our barn, and I find it so interesting. So I'll often like throw apples into the paddock just to
Yeah.
like my
Yeah.
girls, like we play fetch basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they know the sound of it, and
Yeah.
they track it, and it's a little
Yeah.
game that we play. And this little 2-year-old, she cannot track it. She can't figure out what's happening. And of course, her paddock mate, he's 25 now, and
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
very on to this game, right? So
Yeah.
he goes and eats all the apples because she's like, what is happening? I think there's a thing happening. Like, so I
Yeah.
find it super interesting. I've been like in my, kind of, curious mind going, huh, like, is this maybe because this is a part of her that hasn't been, fully
Developed. Yeah.
developed and turned on yet,
Yeah.
where she knows to put her nose on the
Or
ground.
is it concentration that oh gone.
Totally.
Gone.
I think that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah. I heard something. Oh no, there's a flare. Yeah.
Squirrel.
She should be, yeah. So it would be interesting to see if the other horse was not there. Because in a way, I recognize that sometimes if the seeking system is not on, I sometimes throw a group of carrots next to the ear on the right and left, so they can also see it, and from then on they can start moving. And it's not that far apart from each other, but so the ear helps them in the beginning, and then they put on the nose, and then they start, concentration is getting up. Yeah. Oh, but interesting. Yeah. But she is allowed, though. She is allowed from the big horse. The older horse allows her to do the searching.
Yes.
It's not that he has one eye in an occasion towards her that she's not allowed.
I will check that actually, because
he could be very subtle, like only when you start, like one ear and one eye, like, okay, my turn. So
don't you take that apple.
no, exactly. Next 10 minutes are mine. Yeah.
I will check that. I feel like I'm going out to my barn next with a much more nuanced lens, and so I really appreciate that.
So funny, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, we're going to wrap up our conversation here, but this has just been such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, so likewise. I'm so happy about it. Yes, thank you so much.
You are absolutely welcome. And I wanted to just, how do people get in touch with you? I know you had a little gifty potentially here.
Yeah, yes, I would love to. I mean, obviously, I have 2 books written, Calming Signals of Horses and A Scent Work for Horses, that can be bought by various web stores and in stores. And I've just developed an online course on calming signals, and I'm making one on the scent work as we speak, with a lot of clips and for people to watch. And if listeners are interested, if they write in at the coupon code section Whole Horse 15, they get a 15% discount on the course, or courses if they want to, on the online courses. So if they would like that, I would be happy to. The more people know about this, the better for ourselves as well, because it's so nice to do with the horses and play around and have fun together. Yeah,
absolutely. And what is your main website, Rachaël?
That is Calming Signals of Horses. And but if they type in my name, rachaeldraaisma.com, or Scent Work for Horses, it all leads to the same website, and they can find articles, they can find the communication letters they can download. So there's information on there, some film clips. So yeah, they're more than welcome to browse around and see what interests them. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I will have all that information up on the podcast outline as well. And again, the code to get 15% off is Whole Horse 15. And appreciate that really generous gift from you, Rachaël. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would love, and that's why I'm also so happy that we could talk. I mean, obviously, when you have a passion, you want to share and make a lot of people and horses happy. So I'm so happy to be able to do that. So thank you too. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Happy to be a venue for it. And Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening in. I hope you all learned a thing or two. I know I did, and we'll look forward to chatting with you all next time. Talk soon. Bye for now.
Hi, all. I'm excited to share with you that upcoming here, I will be launching my kinetic communication online course. And this will include some time with me in a webinar for questions and queries. And you'll also be running through it with my apprenticeship crew. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll be sharing more details here on the podcast as well as on my socials. And if you've been wanting to learn about applied kinesiology and in particular how to use it with your horses, this would be a great opportunity for you. Okay, I'll be sharing that soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.